we're just at the beginning of figuring out how to put it to work, just at the beginning. And so it is absolutely as big as either the internet or electricity.
All right. Welcome to the Imagine AI Live podcast. I'm your host, Chris Madden, and today we have with us Matt Van Italy, founder and CTO of SEMA. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm awesome, Chris. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. And first, I want to make a note for our listeners that we have the Imagine AI Live conference planning is in full swing. We've got a great roster of speakers, and tickets are available May 28th to the 30th in Las Vegas. Again, our second year doing this. Last year, we had about 600 people come. This year, we're aiming for 1,000. So if you can make it, please go online and check it out. And Matt, I hope you can make it as well. But
My
first,
understanding is all
yeah.
of the cool kits are coming. Literally every single one is coming. And if you're not coming, you're kind of totally missing out. That's the word on the street. That's what people have
Matt,
been saying.
Matt, you should have my job here. Yeah, that's exactly right. It is a fun conference, good mix of people, and some great companies as well, and lots to learn. So thanks, Matt. Well, let's get into it, Matt. Will you tell me what is SEMA and what are you building?
Sure. So we're a software company that helps understand software. And our North Star, what we've been doing for the last 7.5 years, is making software teams and software products understandable to non-technical executives, to the rest of the C-suite, to boards of directors. I personally faced this pain point when I was working in software companies and feeling like there was such a disconnect between what the technologists knew and what the rest of the organization understood. That was a far greater gap than other departments. Like, people understand sales and they have tools like CRM, Salesforce to make sense. So everyone understands at the leadership level what's going on with sales or marketing, these other functions. And always felt like we should be able to do the same thing for code and for software engineers. And so we've been working on that for the last 7.5 years.
Wow, 7.5 years. That's great. And so I love the mission because for me, I do not have a coding or technical background. I'm more of the humanitarian business side of things. And I do understand that, but yeah, the coding software side, it's harder. So what is like the main use case? Like, can you walk us through like a typical user of your company?
Yeah, sure. So our flagship product is called Comprehensive Code Base Scans. And what it is a report that helps one understand the state of a software company or a software team. You can choose several analogies, a Carfax or a credit score, or taking your car to a different mechanic to understand the state of maintenance. What they all have in common is understanding up to a point in time the state of the health of that thing. In this case, it's the software that's being created and really designing the report for action. The most common use case, at least initially, was technical due diligence. So we've helped more than 1,000 companies get evaluated to be purchased or to receive investment worth over $1.5 trillion over the years. Absolutely honored to do that. And so that is a particular moment of valuation where you really need to know what's under the hood. Other cases include companies that are getting ready for sale or getting ready for financing, so sell side prep, and just a general health check when people, like, if they really are not sure what they're getting from their third party development shops, for example, that's another situation where they call us in.
When people work with you, how long does it take to get onboarded? Like, how long does it take to get set up where you can run your scan?
Yeah, for most small and medium-sized companies, it takes about an hour, maybe two. And then we produce the results in an expedited situation when, especially in diligences, in 3 days. Non-expedited, we save folks some money and we deliver it in about 2 weeks.
You've been around for 7 years, your company, and I wonder how much faster that process has gotten faster because of AI and what that journey's been from where you started to what you can do now with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's three main areas where we're using AI, and like a proud parent of non-human children. I mean, I'm also a parent of human children, but if non-human children are products, I could talk about them all day. But three areas, and we can dig in, Chris, on whichever of those are most
Yes,
interesting.
sounds great.
One is that we now inspect software for how much Gen AI code is in it. So we invented an ingredients list to know how much code is written by Gen AI versus written by human, or a mix, because there are some risks associated with using either too little or too much Gen AI code. So we help with the Goldilocks zone to get the Gen AI usage correct. So that's one. Second, we started analyzing um, what the product does. So we got started with how secure, or how much technical debt, what we call non-functional requirements about the code, kind of what's under the hood. We've now been looking at what the product actually does and how well is it doing it, which is product functionality. And we've used AI as a method because, for a variety of reasons, it's really hard to understand by looking at the code and looking at the documentation what the code is doing. And so we've used AI to understand the product. And the third thing is that we use Gen AI as business leaders, and we've gone on a journey over the last 6 months. I would self-assess us as maybe a 2 out of 10 6 months ago, and we really put our heart and effort into being an AI first leadership team. And now we're probably about a 7, nothing to do with coding necessarily, although it includes code, but product and sales and marketing and management. So those are three areas where we do use AI a lot. In terms of the report itself, it is faster thanks to AI, but as much, and obviously everyone's talking about AI, obviously, and there's so many things it can do, but it can't do everything. And we really believe in matching tools for the right situations. And so there's a lot of the core of that first product that works really well as is. And so we're trying to use AI in a targeted way where it can really help improve our business or our customers' experience.
For sure. And thank you for that, rundown of the three things. So let's dig into each one a little bit more. You mentioned how your software, your process can analyze whether the code is written by Gen AI versus human, and you want a Goldilocks zone. And I didn't realize there was a Goldilocks zone for how much Gen AI is recommended or okay to have in your code. So what is that? And I mean, Gen AI wasn't even writing code 2 years ago. Just, I just
And now
wonder.
it's
Yeah.
in, Google says a quarter of their code is now written with Gen AI. So
Wow.
it's really picked up overnight. So why is there a Goldilocks zone? Well, first, what is the Goldilocks zone?
Hmm.
We are setting standards for our clients, and we would recommend approximately 15 to 30% of your code be Gen AI first. Still needs to have humans modifying it. So we say blend that code. You need a human in the loop. You need a human in the loop for sure, but 15 to 30% is a recommended range. If you're using too little, then we think you're losing some opportunity to be productive. Not just be productive, but also have fun. Gen AI can really be helpful. Have you seen the Christopher Nolan movie Inception?
Mm.
You've seen Inception, where the world creators think of something and the world unfolds in front of them. Gen AI can really be like that. You take an idea and then it unfolds in front of you. And so in the coding world, it can help prototype, can help experiment, try different ideas without as much work. Still the amount of thinking work, but with less time on keyboard. And so it can really be magical for that. So that's why you need enough. But too much, and you run the risk of the code not being accurate, the code not being secure, the code not being that valuable. So Chris, imagine you were thinking of buying a software company, and you were buying it not just because of the book of business, the customers, but because you thought the technology was really important. And then you looked under the hood and you saw the code was 100% written by Claude. So someone had prompted Claude and the code was entirely written by Claude. Would you pay more or less for that company than code that was fully written by humans?
Yeah, I would like to have some AI having written it and like having looked over the whole thing.
I like
Yeah.
looking over, but if it really was 100%, I think you would say, why am I buying this company? I could just do it myself. I could
All right.
tell Claude to write all of that. So if it was really And so this is the difference between pure and blended. Blended
Mm,
Gen AI is humans working together. Blended Gen AI is a super good idea. But pure
mm,
Gen AI and the whole code base being pure, write it yourself. Right? Find the
mm.
subject matter expert and build it yourself. And so those conversations about how much of this IP is actually ours anymore because it can be easily reproduced, or how valuable is it because it can be easily reproduced, are happening across diligences around the world. And so it's a wild times, wild times. And so that's why we like keeping it in this, in a relatively narrow range and always having a human in the loop to make that code accurate, custom, low error, etc.
And proprietary, where you
And
actually own
proprietary
something.
and yours,
Yeah,
exactly, something valuable,
yeah,
exactly right.
yeah. Okay, great. Well, and so I like the point number two that you said about having your software kind of run the gamut of what their code can do. And so you're using your AI to like push it to the limits and kind of use all the use cases of all the buttons that somebody could press and figuring out the capabilities of this code that your client's company is building. Can you talk maybe there, tell me an example of stuff that you doing this and then finding something out or how this benefited a client?
Yeah, for sure. So I like to tell the story a little bit because I like telling stories, but I also think for your listeners, you,
Stories are great.
AI, we're just at the beginning of figuring out how to put it to work, just at the beginning. And so it is absolutely as big as either the internet or electricity. So either a 50-year one, something every 150 years, or something in 150 years, but it's not smaller than that. And we are just at the beginning of figuring out how it's going to change our businesses, our workflows, our recreation, all of the above. And so I really encourage folks to be experimenting every chance they can and reading about other examples because they might inspire something that's useful to you personally, useful to your business, etc. And I tell that as context. About a year ago, it can be overwhelming, but I was trying to stay current on different things that AI could do. And I've read this cool academic paper which said that if you give financial statements and annual reports to an LLM, it can do a really good job of picking stocks as good or better than humans. I'm sure if it was true then, it's even more true now. But as I thought about it, annual reports and the financial statements, they're structured, they're structured data, but they're differently structured. Every annual report has a little bit different depending on, Coke's is different from Pepsi's, is different from GM, et cetera. And yet AI was able to take that differently structured data and make sense of it in a high stakes way, right? Being able to pick stocks accurately. And that made me think, well, what is applicable in SEMA's world of understanding code and improving code? And what came to mind is Jira, or product management tools. So folks who aren't deep in tech, the coders work in a version control system like GitHub or the like. And the designs are the instructions come from product management software, of which Jira is a leading provider. It's a great tool. And so product managers put product design, product ideas with pictures or otherwise into Jira, and then engineers build it. Well, Jira is differently structured data. Not only is every company slightly different in how they set up Jira, it's very customizable, but most teams use Jira differently within their companies and they set them up differently. So we have this, and it's a historically giant problem to make sense of Jira data because it is so differently structured. CRMs always have accounts, opportunities, etc. And so you can do that crosswalking. It's just not true. It's just not true on the Jira side. So we took that lesson, can work with um, AI can work with the differently structured data of Jira and make sense of it. And our amazing research team put in some work, and then we've implemented it now. And this may sound crazy to your listeners, but it's really quite transformational with no setup other than connecting tools. So like 5 minutes, we can give you a summary of what the team worked on, what they were building this past week, and when the work that's going to be finished, the due dates, expected due dates, completion dates of your work. And that is transformational because normally it takes a huge amount of human time to make sense of it or to set up systems that connect or whatever. And just being able to get in full sentence English, this is what we did and this is what we're doing and when it's going to be done, is really a big difference for for coding and for software product development. Someone today said, "Are you married?" Because this is so helpful to product managers, and they just didn't have it before. I am married very happily, and no, just because our product is doesn't mean we're on the market, but it's just wild, and all thanks to creativity of thinking about the AI applications, and then I just can't say enough about our amazing researchers and engineers.
That does sound really great. And so are you saying that your software, your product can be a more ongoing thing as well?
Amazing. So that's a great point. So we started with code scans. Now in diligences, we can understand what the product roadmap is. So we added this product roadmap feature to diligences, but you're absolutely right. We've been building a SaaS version of this to ongoing help keep roadmaps on track and understand if code quality is right. So great catch. The SaaS product is an MVP and we're so excited about it. But exactly so, it's to help keep the product and engineering teams working together in the right direction.
Cool. And so that MVP, how long ago did you launch that? Has it been fully rolled out for
Yeah,
clients?
it's we've been working on it for a year, and
Hmm.
we're very picky about when it goes from MVP to general availability because we
Hmm.
have really our customers tell us the truth. And one of the fun things about building products for engineers is they know how the sausage is made and they have extremely high standards. So while we're proud of what we've built so far, it won't get out of MVP until our customers love it. And it is such a gift that business owners know to have customers who tell you the truth about what you're creating and if it's good enough or not. And so we'll keep it at MVP until it meets their standards.
And MVP again, that's most viable product, most valuable product?
Great. It's minimum viable product. So
Minimum, that's right, that's right.
what do you need in order to get the point across? I love it's somewhat related to Agile, but my favorite example is the minimum viable product of a fancy 3-layer wedding cake is a
Mm-hmm.
cupcake. A little bit of
Mm-hmm.
cake, a little bit of frosting, a little bit of decoration, because
Mm-hmm.
that is the experience. As a user, I want to have a fully delightful piece of cake. And
Mm-hmm.
the alternative would be, well, we're going to get the base layer exactly right, and then the next layer, and the next layer. Does it do a core set of jobs, as few as possible, but well, such that you can actually get something done with them? And so the MVP for us is a combination of some of these factors, but including understanding what the engineers are working on and when is the roadmap expected to be delivered.
Is there an example of a company that you've worked with that you can talk about and you can explain how you helped them and the tangible things that you delivered?
Yeah, our clients really like confidentiality. And
Mm.
so maybe I'll tell some generic stories. I'd say we're certainly extremely proud of, or anonymous stories, extremely proud of helping great companies pass technical due diligence and then get that next round of investment and get funding, whether they because by the time someone's getting diligence by us, everybody wants the deal to go through as long as it's safe enough. And our job is to help make sure that the code base is safe enough. I mean, almost always is, not always, but almost always, while minimizing the amount of time on the seller because it's already an incredibly stressful process. I think of a moment that really stands out for me. It happened in 2020 for reasons you're about to see why I tell the story. We were helping diligence a company, a software company, a pretty large company, and they had a 20% decrease in development activity. And if you only have 10 developers and it's a 20% decline, people could go on vacation or Christmas holidays or whatever, right? So, if it's a small enough number, it could be explained by random chance or vacations or whatever. But this company was to too big for it to be explained by random chance, and it would have been a risk. I mean, it was a real risk for the company, and so we took the report and we interviewed the code owner and said, help us understand what's going on here. Is how serious is this risk? And they said, oh, you noticed it was 2020. We were really negatively impacted by COVID, and we asked the entire company to take Fridays as a furlough. So
Mm.
literally 20% of the team's efforts across the whole business was reduced because we needed to survive the pandemic, the impact of the pandemic. And that was like, I mean, I still get goosebumps hearing that story that the data isn't necessarily determinative, but it helps indicate what's really going on and ultimately leads to a better answer, a de-risked answer for the business. So that's, I think, one of my favorite stories on the representing buyers. And then representing sellers as they've gotten ready for sale. I'd say the nicest moments are, so imagine this is like a Carfax. If the Carfax is good enough, you're just going to buy it. It's good enough to sell. But in certain circumstances, if the first score doesn't work, you're going to have to go get the engine fixed or whatever it is. And so it's the happiest moments where the first time we run the scan, it's good enough. It's clearly you're going to pass. We have a 1 to 100 score where the score is high enough. You're definitely going to pass diligence. You don't need to worry about it. But probably the most gratifying moments where it wasn't high enough the first time around, they did the work, they did the maintenance, the improvement to get the code base to a healthy spot. And then they were able to successfully exit, helping achieve their dreams, their investors' dreams, their owners' dreams. It's a really, really, really awesome feeling.
Okay, the third thing that you mentioned about that AI is helping you is with leadership and the team. So let's go back first, though. And can you tell me maybe first an origin story about yourself, how you started this company?
Yeah, sure. So the really origin story is I am the son of a math teacher and a computer programmer. And what I grew up to do is to build a software company that treats code as data for math. And so I don't know if it was in the genes or the water, but I certainly took a very circuitous path to get here. I studied history in undergrad. I worked as a management consultant, helping government agencies and investors. I then spent some time doing data and analytics for school districts. A passionate subject for me is how to improve teaching and learning for kids who need it the most and try to help use schools as a way to pull kids out of poverty. After that public service stint, I went into ed tech. So I started working for an education software company based on my education experience and fell in love with enterprise software and just the systems of it, the opportunities for improvement, the consistency. I really loved it. Worked for another software company as well, and then realized this. And the aha moment for me was that I'm tech savvy and certainly data savvy, but wasn't definitely not a coder. I just didn't understand why we couldn't understand what was going on with the engineering team. And it seemed clear that at least many of my peers on the executive team didn't understand either. And spent about a year and a half studying and researching, is there a way to use code to understand code? And this was way before the advances in AI. And so I had the chance to talk to hundreds of professors. We ended up spinning out a technology from the University of Michigan, who were just honored to have them as part owners of SEMA. And that kernel of science to use code to understand code became the basis for what SEMA is today.
Amazing. And so do you have co-founders?
Many people have helped along the way. Many people have helped along.
Awesome. Tell me about your team.
Yeah, so we have a totally rad distributed team, almost not every continent, but almost every continent, engineers significantly, and product team and service delivery, because we like that story about the 20% reduction in development needed humans to interpret it. So we have a small but incredibly impressive professional services team. We started with some of the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, of AI adoption by thinking of the things we hated to do the most and seeing if AI could help. For me, meeting notes and follow-ups, I can't stand writing them. Oh my God, it's the last thing on earth I wanted to do. And so finding a good transcription tool and then a method to turn those, not just a transcript, but to just have a summary of to-dos as if there was a note taker, like organizing things as we went, was a huge lift.
Okay, let me pause you there. What tool do you use?
So we use Otter. We record in Zoom. We get transcripts from Otter. And then we use Claude. We have specific, what we call task prompts in Claude to produce meeting notes the way that we want. One of the keys to our, went from like a 2 to a 7. And absolutely one of the ways we got there is getting someone to totally geek out on prompting, which I highly recommend. If you're slightly geeky, go for it yourself and figure it out, or find someone geeky on your team who can do it. But basically, of course, you can go to an LLM and, type something and it will tell you an answer, maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But the more specific the instructions, the more likely it is it's going to do what you want. And so a task prompt is just a set of instructions, but the really good task prompts can be pages long. Here is the context of the problem we're solving. Here are the constraints on what we'd like you to do. Here is what we would like you to do next. And so when we solve problems now, and problems in quotes, it could be, help me pick a movie, help me plan a trip, help me prepare a board meeting document, whatever it is. We use very detailed task prompts to, it gives really, give an LLM really clear set of instructions. And really, to get meta here, we have task prompts to build task prompts. So if I like being spontaneous, so I want to stress I did not do this. But let's say I wanted to become super prepared for the interview with Chris rather than being spontaneous. I would say, build me a task prompt that would help me prepare to be a great guest on a podcast. Great guest means I listen, I have some knowledge, but I'm really aiming for a conversation, etc. It would then create a set of instructions. Here's how to get ready for a podcast. I would then use those instructions. Who are you meeting with? What are the things that person cares about? And then we have that set of instructions to produce the final output. And that two-step process, a task prompt, creating a task prompt, and then using that task prompt as a second step has been transformational to get of LLMs. One of the stumbling blocks for folks who are getting used to it is it doesn't remember everything you said. And unlike if you're used to code, where if you say something, it's going to follow those instructions, it doesn't always follow those instructions. So you have to keep in your working memory the reminder of what you want it to do, which is unnerving. It's worth it in the end because it's such a powerful colleague, but I have to keep a running list of things I expect from it and remind it. And it's, oh, you're right, I'm sorry, I forgot that step, which is it's a very weird experience with software where it forgetting is just a strange thing.
It's funny how we went from first being worried about AI knowing everything about you, but now it's you really wanted to know everything,
So it could be super helpful. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So other ways that you've used AI in your team to help make your business stronger.
Yeah, so we're really actively using it on the product team. Product stories. Stories are now written to really give clear instructions to engineers. We prototype with AI to make sense of something even before we have to bother the engineers who are incredibly busy. We definitely use it for market research. If I'm writing white papers and things, I, of course, do the final writing of it, but it's a great place to collect information. We do it for, of course, part of software development, whether it's coding itself in certain circumstances or testing or documentation or understanding old code. It's absolutely super powerful for that. Those are probably a few ways. There's probably 50 if I counted, but those are from the ones that come most to mind.
I'm curious about, it sounds like you kind of got a remote asynchronous team in a lot of ways. And how do you, from a top down level, how do you organize that, the communication? What tools do you use?
We do our best to take communication seriously. And it starts with our DNA document, which explains what our values are. And really with an expectation that we use these values at work, whether or not they're values at home, these are our values at work. And that kind of gives people guidance, regardless of where they are, of how we do what we do. And then we actually write down everyone's communication preferences. A document where everyone can see how people prefer to be communicated with. You don't always get to be communicated with how you want, but people should at least know how you prefer. And of course, if you need something from somebody, it's a good idea to pay attention to how they want to be communicated with, right? So it greases the wheels to make things happen. And then we try to have, just enough meetings. I have some great colleagues on our team who are fast to remind us that meetings are not work. Meetings can get in the way of work. And so the goal is to have them to the absolute minimum and optional wherever we can, while still making sure that we stay aligned. So there's a lot that gets done asynchronously. Slack is, of course, an amazing tool for that, and detailed documentation. Slack, asynchronous communication, bare bones standing meetings, optional all hands meetings. Those are probably our biggest methods.
A lot of what you're talking about is kind of and really got me thinking about the overviewing of systems and stressing what somebody got done last week, and how to have a roadmap for action the next week. And I can't be helped but reminiscing about like the current time we're in, and this whole like from a bureaucracy point of view, and like how big can AI get in helping run our government better, these big systems better.
Yeah. I think we are just at the beginning of really understanding and experimenting with how powerful this technology can be to help make systems better. Like I said, I do think we're at the beginning of something either as big as the internet or electricity, but we don't know how to use it yet. And so there's this fully. So there's just so much experimentation that's coming. I spent many years in school system work, urban school system work of really complex human systems. And I think it's still going to be an aid. AI is going to be an aid to humans working together to solve problems. There may be some things that are automatable, but the most important systems, the most important things we do are about humans interacting with each other. And we just have to learn how to put these tools to work to make great things happen. I think, from my education days, with almost no exceptions, learning happens because of a student, content, and a teacher who cares. A teacher who cares. Now, that's not to say that you can't learn under certain circumstances, can't learn from just interacting with a bot of some kind, whether it's AI or not. You can learn from it. You think about how much my son loves Grand Theft Auto and all its variations, how much he has learned about the substance of the game and like how to play it, but also game mechanics like comes through. Games are kind of an exception in the grand scheme of things. Human people really learn when someone they know cares about them and is helping them learn, is helping guide them, and that emotional connection will never be taken away. And so in the education sector, what can we do? Start with easy things. What are the really annoying parts about and challenging parts about running a human system that's as complicated as a school district? Let's take away some of those parts. Literally when I was in it and I worked in operations, we built by hand a textbook distribution system, like which schools would get which books, etc. There's no magic in that. That is absolutely automatable, and humans can edit and review it. But it really is, yeah. Pick painful things, unpleasant things that aren't about human judgment and don't get to the core of the human to human interaction, and see where AI can help with those. And there's a lot of systems. Systems would be better if we could put AI and other applicable tools to use solving those long before we had to practically deal with how AI could affect some of maybe the most critical relationships.
Great answer. And as a former educator myself, and I still consider myself an educator in everything we're doing here at Imagine AI Live. And I feel like, it's in today's world, it's never been easier to access information. And you have this wealth of knowledge at your fingertips, and you can go down so many roads. But the thing that it can't do is like provide the motivation and provide you that, that kind of mission and then the accountability too. And it's those things that the human, the teacher in the classroom, it can't be replaced by a robot, can't be replaced by an AI. You need that human connection. And so at first, with advanced voice coming out, and you really can have this like tutor on your phone, but is it really like, does it drive you to pick up that phone and use it? No. And then managing a group of people, no. And so I think teachers are incredibly valuable, and I mean they're raising the future of our country and future generations. Matt, well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and I thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and I really do wish you the best. Your company sounds amazing, and it sounds really useful for everything we're doing here, and it sounds really useful to your clients. So thank you so much for coming on the Imagine AI Live podcast, and you can check Matt out on Matt Van Italy out on LinkedIn, and his company is SEMA.
Chris, thank you so much for having me. It was an incredibly fun conversation. I feel like we could have talked for hours. Happy to talk to any of your listeners. You can contact me at MVI Matt Van Italy at SEMAsoftware.com, SEMA software.com, or if you click on any of the buttons at SEMAsoftware.com to learn more, a team member will find me. Thank you so much for having me. And listeners, do not forget about the conference. It is super cool, and I highly recommend you attend.